Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're going to be installing what is one of the easiest mods you can do to any C6 generation Corvette. But we're going to be installing it to the C6 Z06. We're going to discuss what I got, why I got them, and I'm going to show you the easiest way to install them. This is going to be trial and error here. I already did one side, so I learned all of the tips and tricks that you need to know to do this much easier than any other video I've seen so far. So stay tuned, let's take a look at how I do this. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and in the next video we're gonna go for a drive and I'm gonna tell you guys how it drives. Is it better, is it worse? Let's get started. First, I want to show you guys a comparison of old versus new. I don't think these shocks were too bad. I think the rear ones were not that great anymore. They were getting kind of spongy. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to do a little bit of improvement to my C6 Z06. I put new tires on it. It improved things significantly. Now I'm going to try putting some new shocks. And these are Bilstein shocks. These are great shocks, but these are the Doug Rippey, so DRM, modified shocks. He takes them apart, does some new valving to it. These are better for more spirited driving than regular Bilsteins, and Bilsteins are better for more spirited driving than the regular stock ones. These are very soft, very comfortable. I've always said this car is a very good grand touring type of car, but I wanted something with more feel, right? So I'm gonna try this out. So I'm gonna put these Bilsteins on it. We're gonna see how it goes. And I'm also gonna show you one other thing. So obviously, excuse the mess. This is a working bench right now, but I wanted to show you guys the differences in bushings. So this is a stock bushing. This is for the rear of the car. It's very squishy and kind of old and spongy. Now the Bilstein shocks do come with stock, nice and firm and rubbery, new bushings for all four shocks. DRM, the Doug Rippey website, sells special bushings, and they're in right here. This is their part number, the shock mount bushings, and they're much stiffer. They're polyurethane. They have a lot less give, not no give, but a lot less give. So I should be able to feel the road a little bit better than I currently feel with these older bushings. Now, this may introduce a little bit of sound, a little bit of vibration, but it's, you know, a trade-off. It's not a big deal. So you're gonna use these nylon locking nuts that the Bilstein shocks bring, and these are for the shocks. I'll show you guys how to put these on. I was a little confused. Maybe you're smarter than me, you already know how these go on, but I figured it out myself. I'll show you guys how these goes on. Before we lift it up, I'm gonna have my jack already. I wanna show you guys something, and excuse the filthiness of the car, I have to wash it again. But on that side over there, you have to remove that coolant tank. It's very easy. There's a nut there. There's a nut there. It's a 10mm nut. Very easy to do. In fact, I'm going to zoom in for you guys there. There it is. One, and there's two, 10mm. You take them off and you carefully lift this out of the way and you move it this way. It works really, really well. Highly recommend you do that. I don't think you could do it, the shock change without it. So that's the only difference between this side and that side. And it really is not a big deal. Let's go over the tools you need to do this job. This is a 19mm socket. I'm gonna put all the tools, by the way, in the description below, so it makes it a lot easier for you guys. This is a 19mm wheel socket. You use that, of course, to take off your wheels. You're going to need a 24mm wrench. That's for the rear suspension. And again, I will show you guys where I use that. I recommend getting one of those. And again, I'll show you guys how I use it. That's just a adjustable wrench. Obviously, jack stands, a spare jack. So you have one jack lifted up and a spare jack. If you don't have a spare jack, you can do it, but you're gonna be doing a lot of strength lifting the suspension up yourself. I like to use these little wire wheels to clean up all the areas that need to be cleaned up. I like to keep my areas clean, especially where I'm mounting suspension, so that's where that comes in. You're gonna need a flathead screwdriver. That flathead screwdriver, I use it to pry off some of the bushings in the front, and I will show you that. A multi-tool is always comes in handy. I've used it to do a number of things. You want a grease gun. So this is my first car, so a lot of trucks have these, but this is my first sports car with a greasable ball joint. It's crazy. It's got a actual grease fitting on a ball joint. So I brought this out. I have lots of tractors and skid steers that use this stuff. So just brought this out, high quality grease, and I put 5 pumps of grease into that ball joint. You're gonna wanna use, I recommend liquid wrench. I love this stuff. You're gonna want a 24 millimeter socket for your impact gun, or if you don't have an impact gun, you could just use a regular 1/2-inch socket like I do. You're gonna want a 15 millimeter wrench. And then you're gonna want a 17 millimeter wrench and some, extensions and things like that. And I have some extra tools lying around. You're also gonna want, this is a 5 millimeter Allen key. This helps on the Bilstein side when you're tightening it and loosening up and doing what you need to do there. And that about wraps it up for the tools list. Now, if you missed one of my previous videos on how to lift up and move around your Corvette, I'm going to show you this. So I installed these pads. These, again, everything's in my description below. You can get it on Amazon. So these pads make it a lot easier for me to just use the little trusty, put it on that, lift it up, and put a jack stand back there. So next time you see this car, it'll be up in the air. So as a side note, before I show you guys what I'm going to do, these hood shocks are excruciatingly easy to replace. You literally, this is the new ones I put on, but you just take a screwdriver of the old ones and you lift up this little bend right here and you yank it off. And the new ones, make sure they have a little grease in them to prevent any issues. And you just pop them on. Pop one there, and you pop one there. It literally took me less than 30 seconds each side. So if you have that problem, easy to fix. Link in the description for the hood shocks. It's like, I don't know, 20 bucks. The dealer was asking for like 200 bucks to do it. It was crazy. So there you go. Now, I'm gonna start with the front. This is I believe this is the trickier side because this bushing here, this bushing is I feel like it's one monolithic bushing from the top through the hole of the suspension mount to here. So it takes a little bit of strength to kind of maneuver the thing and break it free. You have to break the bushing away, and that takes a little bit of doing. So I'm going to show you guys how I do that as I'm doing it. And all it is, also I recommend putting a bunch of penetrating fluid, and I showed you guys what I prefer right there, obviously. And then down here as well, there's 2 bolts. Those bolts down there are easy. The thing I don't like about these 2 bolts down there is that the nuts are at the bottom. I'll show you guys that. Little holes there, and they're not easy to get to. You need a very thin socket, but once you get that, it's easy goings. So after you PB blasted it, just get your whatever you're using to loosen things up. Get a little extension. That's a 15 millimeter bolt right there, and you're just gonna loosen it up a little bit. Gonna hit it some ugga-duggas. And once you see that there's no progress, you stop it. So now that we've loosened a little bit from the top, just a tiny bit, I'm gonna go attack the bottom and loosen it a little bit more. So my setup is using a 13 millimeter down here. And then I put a 13 millimeter up here. See if you guys can see that. There it is. That's basically what you have to do with the extension. Now, I do recommend, before you do that, to go ahead and remove some of these wires out of the way, and it's fairly easy to do that. So once you remove those bolts, and this is, by the way, what it looks like. So top and bottom, this is what it looks like. The bottom nut and the top. This has a little bit more play in it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this slightly offset to give it a little room so I can start hammering at this without really using this as leverage. So after I loosen things up, you got to get this screwdriver in there to break apart that bushing. And when you put pressure on this, you push down. I put the gun at the top, my impact gun. And I keep putting pressure on while I loosen the nut on top. So this is the trick I learned. I actually did watch a YouTube video on installing this on a C6 Corvette, and this one trick that he showed me here I'm using. And no, it's not using this to compress the shock, it's to use zip ties so that when you do compress the shock, you go ahead and do the zip tie, you run it down to that hole down there, and it stays compressed. You take this away, the shock stays compressed, and you can just take it out easily. Now that it's out, I can show you guys. So the zip tie trick works really well. Just compress, keep on tightening, and compress, and keep on tightening, and eventually it's just easy to just slide the whole thing out. I use it through the front of the car. You can do it through the back as well. And this is the bushing that was in, on top of it, right up here. And as you can see, you do have to break it apart to get it out. Otherwise, it won't come out. I'm not using anything special, just a wire wheel. One step you have to take with these Bilsteins, the front ones, not the back ones, those are the back ones over there, these are the front ones, is you have to basically, what I did is took a screwdriver, put it into this hole, and I kind of shaped it to the angle of the stock one, because that's how it's going to sit mounted in there. The next step is to compress the new one, and again I almost reused all of the previous one, cut off one of the ends, and I put another one on there, and I will compress it. I'll just, compress it down. I like to do it upside down. I don't want to scratch the paint. So I just compress down that way, putting your body weight on top of this, compress, put a zip tie on, and install. After you compress it, you have to make what I like to call the bushing sandwich. So again, I ordered polyurethane bushings. Not the stiffest, but also not rubber. And these two shiny bits, they are shiny and they come from Bilstein, and so does the locking nylon nut. And then so I'll show you exactly how the sandwich gets made. And on the front, it's very simple. You have to take these two off, and whoops, there goes the bushing. But so this is the bottom. The hole goes like that. And the bushing, wherever it rolled to, effectively, let's just pretend this is the new bushing. You get the interlocking part, you put it in there, but you have to put this above the mounting points. So you have to put the shock through the hole, you put this above, you put this on top, and then you put this together. So here's a really important part of the setup. There's that 5mm Allen key, and it butts up against that. So all you gotta do is I have a ratcheting wrench, and you don't have to have one, but I do recommend it. It makes it a lot easier to have a ratcheting wrench, and what you gotta do is tighten it down. And you only tighten it down until the discs, when the bushings start to disform a little bit, you're done. Which, by the way, this being carbon fiber, there's no flexibility in it. I mean, zero flexibility. So if you have a C6, it might be a little bit easier for you, but this is what we have to deal with. So when this disc starts bulging and getting a little bit disformed, that's when I stop. And there's the bulge. Just a little bit of a bulge. I was able to do it through here, and then not too hard at all. Moving on to the rears. The rear is much easier. So I got 13mm, 2 bolts, one there. On the other side, this whole mounting hardware comes off, and you put everything except for the bushings onto the Bilsteins. And then down here is a 24mm. You get one 24mm there, and a wrench on the other side, and you take it off. You compress it using the zip tie method and take it out. So let's go ahead and do that. Fast forward, took these off already. Very easy to take off. No problems at all. The zip ties are on. The nut is off on this side. The nut that's off on that side. The jack is on. Put pressure to hold it up and compress that. And that's why I left the bolt on there, because when I do that, I'm able to go ahead and compress this properly. And once I let go of the tension, well, you guys will see. I'll let go of it now. Lots of room. I can easily take the bolts out. There it is. Nice beefy 24mm bolt. And now I do have the e-brake here, so I have to be a little careful not to screw that up and then take it out. So obviously it's out. It was very easy to take out. Once it's out, you have to remove this this top mount. So you need this is a 15 millimeter, and that's why I recommended getting a crescent wrench or an adjustable wrench, and then that'll hold that while you crank away. Let's see if I can do it one-handed. I'm not sure I can. I'm gonna put my foot on it just so I can film this. Usually you'd be holding on to that. No, it's doing it. Hell yeah. Well, you get the picture, you get the point. So that's how you do it. So this is the top mount, how it looks like. You can take it off. Just, you can yank off this bottom piece. Just like that. Yeah, gotta push that out. Just kind of hammer it out. You get the picture. So once again, you make the sandwich. There's the bottom washer, facing like a bowl upwards into a bushing. That bushing facing again like a cup, and then the top bushing has a little notch that goes inside the hole. And you sandwich it all together. You get your 5mm Allen key, your 17mm wrench, and you wrench away. I'm holding it on with my foot while I wrench away. So everything's put together. You see the disc bulging a tiny bit. That's exactly what I wanted. Everything's on. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the zip tie because it's very compressed. And this is after I put the bolt and the nut finger tight. We're almost there, boys and girls. So that's all she wrote. You see my grease gun? It's attached to the ball joint. I just squeezed it 5 times for good measure. It's got new grease in it. A little bit came out, cleaned it off. We're set to go. That's all installed and cleaned up, torqued, and done well. And those are the 24mm. And it's all set. Not bad at all, guys, not bad at all. In the next video, if you stay tuned and subscribe to the channel, we're going to go ahead and drive it and let you know if it was worth it. It's not very expensive. I think this whole thing costs under 500 bucks to get done, especially if you do it yourself. And it wasn't bad to do. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you next time. Peace.